Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Larry Gerstein. I'm the director of the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies at Ball State. Really happy to see all of you here tonight. We expect over the course of today and tomorrow to have about 150 people attend the conference. And people are coming from different places in the United States as well as from Canada. And so that's quite exciting for us to have that diversity of participation. This is the second time that we're hosting this conference. We hosted it in 2013, and we had a similar number of people that attended at that time. The topic tonight is community and campus initiatives to promote peace in troubled times. We didn't have this kind of a forum during our first conference, and we thought that this would be an excellent opportunity to hear some voices of the leaders from the university and from Muncie, and to see what they're doing together to promote peace in our community. And as we all know, peace is an important thing to promote at this point and maintain, given the violence that seems to be increasing. At least that's the way the media has portrayed it to us. And it's a real honor and privilege for me to be able to have Mayor Tyler and President King participate in this kind of a forum. They have no idea what kind of questions or comments you might share with them, and you know, I admire and respect their willingness to, you know, come before you and take this kind of a risk. So please join me in welcoming President King and Mayor Tyler of Muncie to this event. So the format for tonight is that I asked each of them to give some opening remarks, maybe 10 minutes or so. And then we'll open it up to questions and comments from you. And what we were thinking is that if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, if you're on this side of the room, kind of line up in the middle. If you're on the other side of the room, line up on the right. But we'll get back to the logistics here in a minute. So I'd like to introduce again President Terry King of Ball State University, who will speak first tonight.
Thank you, Professor Gerstein. This is really an honor for me to be here. He mentioned that we really have no idea what the questions will be. Actually, Mayor and I were talking, we really have no idea what we're going to speak about as well. So perhaps it's fair play there. But looking at this, I have to say this is the first time I've ever been invited to speak at a peace conference. It's certainly not within my background, but I think there's some really interesting things we can talk about. When I look at the definitions, the many definitions there are for peace, there's a huge range, and in fact that range is well represented, I believe, in the sessions that you will be participating in the next several days, next day, all the way from, you know, profound internal peace to the absence of war on a global scale. I mean, everything in there is on your agenda. And in fact, if you look at the mission statement for the center that Professor Gerstein leads, you'll see that it covers almost all of these things. It's entirely appropriate for a university to have this kind of representation. I'm just going to say a few words about what happens at a university of this type. As you know, Ball State University is a large university. We have about 21,000 students, about 1,000 full-time faculty members. We have about 200 undergraduate degree programs and 100 graduate programs. It's a very comprehensive university, all the way from doing introductory things at the freshman level through doctoral studies. And online, on campus, around the world, we have students now traveling through the world. We have this great world tour that's going on through our College of Architecture and Planning, and they had to reroute through away from Brussels because they were scheduled to be there a day or two after the incidents there. So these things affect the university very deeply. And I would say that a way of opening the conversation here and making points for you to ask questions or comments about is we approach this concept in a number of different ways. So just as an example, the center, if you don't know the center on campus and what it does, it really is worth looking into. They have some marvelous programs at the scholarly level, at the practical level. They work with people from around the world doing some remarkable things, and perhaps you'll hear more about that in the next day or so. We also have a number of built-in services at the university. So I notice our Associate Provost for Institutional Diversity, Dr. Charlene Alexander, is in the audience. She focuses on all those aspects across the institution that both students and faculty members where this becomes important. We have a very large division of student affairs that gets involved in these issues, all the way from conflict resolution at the most basic level to large-scale things such as last year when some issues arose on campus, they and Charlene's group helped lead the diversity dialogues that were a marvelous example of how we at a university campus can engage in resolution of issues because just of the nature of the environment. I would also say that embedded in academic programs themselves, we find interesting approaches to this. I actually, from a personal point of view, my background is engineering. And in the last week or two, if you read the higher education literature, there's an ongoing discussion of whether engineering breeds terrorists because a large fraction, a disproportionate number of the terrorists out there have engineering backgrounds. And just from my personal point of view, I can say this is a disheartening in a way to hear that because my profession is chemical engineering, and I know that people in disciplines like this can do, wonderful things. They can create wealth. They can heal people. They can do things for the environment. They can also kill, pollute, and destroy. So how do they know what to do? Well, the academic programs like mine and others of this type always are embedded in a larger collection of coursework that allows for the kind of education where people begin to appreciate things on a larger scale. In fact, it's required by the accreditation agencies that, in this case, engineers have a broad education in social sciences and humanities, just for that very reason, to know how they interact with society. So universities are wonderful laboratories for that kind of interaction. And I'll say just the culture itself is one where we are better equipped in some ways to deal with issues as they come up. Let me give you the example of science as a discipline that many of you are familiar with, but it's one where there's always conflict in an intellectual sense coming up where we have a disagreement, but we know in the context of that discipline how to deal with that disagreement. It's a matter of dialogue and inquiry based upon certain parameters. It turns out scholars at a university extrapolate that to other disciplines. I know that some of the faculty members in this audience in their own areas also have scholarly disagreements, and they learn how to deal with that in a professional level. Universities are well equipped in that sense to handle some of the issues that become prominent in our country today. And sometimes we get criticized for that from the outside. Why are you concerning yourselves with these issues? It seems like you're wasting your time. And I would just counter that by saying, these issues are going to come up. Why not have it on a university campus where we have highly intelligent people, we're used to these kind of dialogues, and a large fraction of our population turns over every few years, so those things disappear? Or would you rather have those conflicts happen on the main street of your hometown? I mean, they're going to happen somewhere, so let's have them here where we can perhaps come to some meaningful answer. And the last thing I'll say is that we are so fortunate at Ball State University to have partners in this community. Mayor Tyler is a great example of a partner where we actually team in many issues in the community on many different types of things. We have literally hundreds of people out in the community every day many, many faculty members, thousands of students at any given time are involved in things in the community, which I think can only help this whole agenda as we move forward. I'll stop at this point and turn it over to the mayor, and then hopefully we'll generate some discussion after this.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. It's, you know, these are very exciting times going on in our country today. If you're looking at things going on at the national level and across the world, but there are also some very scary times. And I didn't realize that Dr. King was a chemical engineer, and I guess in a lighthearted way, I defer back to Sheldon on the Big Bang Theory. He always told me that an engineer wasn't smart enough to create any problems. But so whatever they're trying to say about engineers probably just isn't true. But you know, it's as a mayor of a community as diverse as the city of Muncie is, ladies and gentlemen, and if you look at our over 70,000 people that we have living here, they come from all socioeconomic levels, all races, all genders, all religious diversities, and that's a very good thing. I always enjoy coming through the campus and coming at the crosswalk and seeing students out there if they're holding signs or something that they're wanting to challenge the university, or they're wanting to challenge the community, or they're just wanting to challenge the structure. And in my lifetime, it seems like many of the changes that I've seen in a very peaceful, challenging way in our culture seems to have started at the younger level and worked its way up and begins to get the attention of younger adults. I could go back to 2008 and having the opportunity to be on the campus and out in the village when we had a presidential candidate that set up a campaign headquarters in the village. And when I walked in there and had the opportunity to see the young students and to see the excitement in their eyes, I knew that something special was going to happen. I didn't quite know how, but I knew that something special was going to happen. I see that now on the national level. I'm not here to say what's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I see that very same type of enthusiasm. And it's good because education, I think, is a key part of our culture to promoting peace and conflict resolution. I can tell you from spending six years in the Indiana General Assembly and then coming in as mayor, there's many times that you have to deal with things that are very conflicting. And the great thing about having a university like we have here is even though we may have cultural differences at times and other type of social differences, at the end of the day, we all understand that we have to be successful together. And we have to reach peaceful, conflicting resolutions together. I remember so clearly, I believe it was in 2012 or 2013, the city of Muncie decided that we needed to take a stand, the mayor's office and the city council, on a horrible piece of legislation that was in the Indiana General Assembly. And it was very divisive, and it was very mean, and it was very segregationist towards certain classes of people. And we did. And what amazed me, ladies and gentlemen, is after the city council meeting, I had a young man come up to me just about my grandson's age, right around 10 or 11 years old. I would have never, ever dreamed that anything in the world like that would have made a difference to him, but it did. And he thanked us for what we did. 3 days later, in the newspaper, former President Joe Angora had a letter to the editor that I'm sure she probably took some heat over. But she talked about the importance of the city of Muncie stepping up and challenging that legislation in the state of Indiana. and she thanked us for what we did. And the comment that I think that was so important for where Muncie has been in their past, and where I think we were getting to that time, and where I hope we're going, is her final sentence was something like this: that a few years ago, Muncie probably wouldn't have done that, but it didn't matter because they did it today, and that's what makes the difference. There's so many things that go into having a peaceful community, and I can tell you, looking at it as a mayor and wanting to bring new development, new people into a community, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the top 5 issues for bringing development and people into your community isn't about where they're going to work and how much money they're going to make anymore. It's what type of community you have. Do you have a community that's willing to work together, to be peaceful together? Do you have good school systems? Do you have the right type of community to be a welcoming, diverse community? And if you are, that's what many young people want to look at today. Then they understand that that's the community they want to live in. Then they'll take their talents and they'll go out and find them a job. Wasn't always that way. Back in the day, there was many other things that played into that. I think the most exciting thing for me right now is, as mad as I get with watching television, and I do, that one of the most important pieces of working out these puzzles today, I believe, is social media. If you use it and you use it for the right reasons, you can have great partnerships and you can get a lot of great things done. But as troubling as these times are, I still believe that this is the greatest country in the world. I still believe that it's the safest, most peaceful country in the world, because we do allow people to demonstrate. We do allow young men and women, whether it's in universities or whether it's in high schools or wherever it's at, we do allow them to have a say. And we don't punish them, and we don't line them up against a firing squad wall and shoot them for doing that. It's how we get to those resolutions, in my opinion, is what sets us apart from the rest of the world. We still got a long way to go, but we're still the greatest country in the world. I look forward to trying to answer any questions that you have tonight. It's good to see this many people that have an interest in what's going on here over the weekend. And what impresses me so much is what the Institute does and what Ball State University does to offer these types of programs and for the community to participate in. Thank you.
Thank you, President King and Tyler. Also a co-sponsor of this event, as they were in 2013, and we really appreciate that support that we get from the city to host these kind of events. It's now your opportunity to comment.
Well, I first would like to thank Terry and my name is John Peterson. I'm a local physician here. And I'd like to thank Dr. King and everybody involved with the university for their great immersive learning program. I have personally benefited greatly from that through the last 25 years. And it mainly had to do with the project that I had here in downtown Muncie. I owned a building and a nightclub that kind of helped to reinvigorate the area. But one thing I noticed owning that building was that about every 3 months there'd be a whole new set of graffiti that would be plastered over the walls at the side of the building with the famous Letterman Alley. And I knew it was probably related to some young gang activity. And I guess I'm referring this question to Mayor Tyler. What is happening with that kind of activity, and where are we with violence in the school system?
Excuse me. I hated to see you retire from downtown, too. We understand that we do have some gang activity here, although, and you always worry about it. Please don't misunderstand me, but I think our violence in our schools and in our streets, if you look at what's going on in Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Lafayette, Chicago, and around us, I'm very, very pleased and proud where we're at. We know that there's some issues in our schools. We know some of it is social. We know some of it is probably gang related. We have some excellent officers, Officer Robert Scaife and others that are very knowledgeable on the different types of potential gang activity. We have a strong informational system on how to deal with that. The graffiti is what it is. That's part of the initiation with some of the gangs. We have bought certain types of chemicals that we can use to put on walls and that when they do spread the graffiti, we can get it off as quickly as we can. I wish I knew what was going on with some of our younger people today. I really do. I think it's very troubling times for them. And I think, and I hope nobody misunderstands what I'm saying, but if you don't have the tough love and the true love and the discipline at home, and everything that you're seeking ends up on a street corner someplace, I don't think that's good. I think that eventually, if somebody doesn't get a hold of you, and today, I don't think teachers could get a hold of a young man or woman today like they could years ago, and really take the time to dedicate themselves to a dentist hire. We're not going to let you get any worse than what you are today, Dennis. I don't think teachers have the opportunity to do that today because they are so focused on teaching to a test and different things that it's almost impossible for them to be able to do that. It's a challenge for our police officers because it's a very fine line at times when they're dealing with youth violence. It's very hard to deal with, and it's very hard to figure them out. That's one of the reasons that we're going to implement some community policing later this summer in some key neighborhoods. We think that that's extremely important to get our police officers closer to the neighborhoods for them to begin to understand each other. It's another reason I'm going to, you'll appreciate this, I'm going to implement a bicycle program this summer too for some of our police officers to get out on so they can get into neighborhoods. I think it's important. I come from public service, ladies and gentlemen. I'm 73 years old and I've been in public service for over 50 years. And as a firefighter, and as a legislator, and as a mayor. And I can tell you, every one of these public safety officers, 99% of the time, are great people. And they go to the same church as you do, they go to the same grocery store as you do, they appreciate the same type of music you do, but they can also be very intimidated too. They can be very intimidated trying to do their job and do it in the right, respectful way. When I was a kid, Doc, if I did something wrong, by the time Mr. Mossberg got done with me and I got home, I was in trouble again. And I knew that. That's not the way it is today. I just don't think that happens. And I think a lot of that is our society. It just is our society. Far too many single-family homes that don't understand the threat of violence and what it can drive our children to and where it can end up driving our children. It's education is, I think, so critical in peace and nonviolence. I noticed one of the questions here, and then I'll turn it over to Terry. It's it was, what is the number one threat to maintaining peace in Muncie? Yep. A lot of what I see happen comes from ignorance, and I don't intend, I'm not trying to be cute about this, but I think it does come from ignorance. People not understanding the society around them, and so all they want to do is reach out in a violent way, and they feel like maybe possibly they're being attacked, so they attack back. I think that's the importance of a university and a community coming together to where we can educate and we can reach out. In my time in the General Assembly and as Mayor of Muncie, there's never been an occasion that I reached out to Ball State University that they didn't reach back and give back. If I told them that we were having issues, that we needed help, we needed an immersive learning program to do this, or a project to do this, that they didn't figure out a way to help us do it and to promote that. And this is as important to Ball State as it is to Muncie, to have a peaceful community, and a community that can live together, can work together, and can learn together, and pray together, or whatever else it is, whatever your ideas are and what your beliefs are. That's as important to a university as it is to the city. I can't imagine that we were dealing with issues that were going on in the General Assembly. I can't tell you how many phone calls that we got to my office of parents whose children could potentially go to Ball State wanting to know what we were going to do about this piece of crazy legislation or this piece of crazy legislation. Are you going to do something about it? Because if you don't, we will probably not bring our children to Ball State, because we want them to feel safe, we want them to feel welcome.
I think that you said it extremely well. I mean, when I was asked a similar question here, what is the number one threat to maintaining peace on campus? The first thing that came to my mind was ignorance as well. So we're certainly aligned that way. But let me give you two really small examples of how we as an institution try to help the city and the community in this. There's this wonderful program that started a few years ago called Schools Within the Context of the Community, which deals with first starting with preschool, then up through the third grade, embedding teachers, students who will become teachers in the community and helping them understand the community's needs in that specific area, which are different from different areas in this city and other cities as well. And then not only just working with the students, the children, working with their families, going to their functions, going to their churches, going to their birthday parties, those kind of things. And I won't tell you much about the program itself. It is a pretty remarkable program that it's something you have to look at. But the idea is that students to have success have to have success in school. And to get success in school, they have to learn how to read, because between up to the third grade, you're learning how to read, and after the third grade, you're reading to learn. And if you can't get to the point where you're reading at the third grade level, you'll never learn effectively. And that's what happens to so many students. They get stuck. I can report that this program has been so successful. They're just 100% successful in getting these students to read. It's won national awards right now. Faculty members are being invited across the country to help people replicate this. Those are the kind of small things that can happen to help students, children be successful. They never get to the point where they're spraying paint on the walls of the downtown buildings. And also, we have a lot of our students working in the Youth Opportunity Center, which is, a lot of troubled students go through that organization as well, and they do really good things. We try to get them to not get there in the first place, but then once they're there, how do you get them to come out? So being proactive about those techniques and methods that can help students alleviate their problem is that it seems to be the way to go. Those are just two small examples.
Questions? Yes.
My name's Karen Howells, and a couple weeks ago, we were able to go to the Islamic Center for an open house. It was a wonderful experience. Wondered if there were anything more events planned like that, and how are we going to publicize that so more people know and can be not only aware but then follow through.
You're right, that was a great program and had a great turnout. I can tell you what the city has done is we've promoted that on all of our social media. We promoted Dr. Barami's op-ed letter on all of our social media networks. And I think that's important. I think that's how you offset the ignorance. I think that's how you offset the hatred. It's by good people standing up and speaking out on what's right. Doesn't mean y'all have to agree. Again, that's a great thing about this country. We can have differing views, but at the end of the day, I mean, how in the world could anybody in their right mind say that they want to build walls? Seriously, I said that out at the Islamic Center that as long as I'm there, we'll never build a wall around Muncie. And I hope, and let me tell you something, and I think this is why it's important that the city of Muncie and Ball State's here together tonight. That wasn't always the case. There was a time when there was almost an island around Ball State University, and they didn't want anybody leaving that island and getting out into the community. And I can tell you there was a time when politicians in the city of Muncie used Ball State for their own political gain as the enemy. Well, I don't see that happening today. And I think that's important. We break down those barriers. Every day I see the hands at the underpass at Kirby and Madison. My dream is, ladies and gentlemen, the day that we don't need those hands there anymore, that the entire city of Muncie is welcoming to all, that there isn't any barrier at the underpass, there isn't any barrier at the Martin Luther King Jr. Bridge, that it's all one community. We just had a great program yesterday showing the Kisselman Trailhead and talking about the Ball family and their vision. One of the Ball family's visions was the parks and the way that they strategically located them in our community. If people don't understand that, there's a reason the Ball family wanted a park like there is close to Whiteland, as same as the industry in southeast side of Muncie. There was a reason that they wanted those types of things in our community. And it's important for people to understand that the city of Muncie and Ball State are here together to promote that type of peace. But again, it's people like you in this room that are not afraid to speak out and say that any family of any religious belief that is a belief of peace and love and harmony and goodwill is welcome. They're welcome to break bread at my table. They're welcome to break bread at my church. They're welcome in our community. That's an important message. And I think it's so important today with everything that you're seeing going on at the national level. It's very scary times. My dad told me when I was a kid, the day would come that we'd see blood in our streets again. And I think we're getting very close. I think we're getting very close. And my dad was just an old UAW factory rat, but he was a very intelligent man. And he told me the day would come that he said, never forget your history and never forget your past, because you're always doomed to repeat it. And the day will come, we'll see blood in our streets again. And I think we're getting very, very close if we don't do something very important here pretty shortly, between now and November. Yes.
In response to your question about future activities, this Sunday night there's an interfaith pitch-in dinner here in Muncie that's being hosted by the Islamic Center and the Jewish temple here in town. And it's been going on for quite some time. It's at 5 o'clock at the Unitarian Church here in town from 5 to 7:30. And it's open to the public, and you're all invited. Just bring a dish to share. Yeah. And we can give you a flyer later on. Yeah, yes.
Yvonne Wilson, I'm with the city of Muncie. President King, I just met with a class Thursday evening of Ball State students that, and we still hear this information out in the community, that there are still professors and people at the university that tell the students, do not come into certain parts of the city. And I wondered if you knew about that and what can be done to stop that.
You know, I have not heard that, and certainly if you do hear that, let me know it as much specificity as you can so I can help educate those, obviously, ignorant background members if we need to be out in the community. I'd say on the other side of things, we do have many faculty members who are out there a lot. And so by their example, we should be able to show this is it's a wonderful opportunity for our students to learn so much in many different ways. All the colleges, all the current 7 colleges and soon to be 8 colleges would benefit by being out in the community more. So if that does come up in a conversation, if you hear students saying that directly to me, I'd be happy to talk to them. If they don't want to come to the president's office, we can probably find a less intimidating place for them to come and give that information.
Send them to my office.
Yeah.
That conversation still is out there, Yvonne, you're right. President Gore and I, we dealt with that in January of 2012 in an hour program we had right after I took office as mayor. I don't know what, I don't know what encourages professors or that to do that. I don't think it does anybody any good. And maybe it goes right back to what Dr. King, maybe it's just ignorance. Maybe they've never gotten out there themselves. I don't know. But I can tell you this, there isn't a better community in this city than Whiteland or old Sunnyside out on the southeast side of Muncie. I can take you to parts of Shedtown that's the same way. You know, industry is the same way. They're great people. They're great people. They're great citizens. And it's, I believe it's a culture that doesn't want to understand other cultures. And we can go from northeast Muncie to southwest Muncie, and those cultures would be completely different with their way of life and that. But at the end of the day, when they get into downtown Muncie, they're just all people, and that gets very frustrating. But you know, there was a time when Ball State would also advise to not even go to downtown Muncie. That's gone now. So as we encourage them to get involved in the Unity Center, to get involved in Motivator Minds, to get involved in the Bewley Center and the Ross Center, as they get out, they see that. You know, and I think that's how you break down those barriers. And it's the younger generations, my children and my children's children, and all of your children and children's children, that will break down those barriers. They don't want to see barriers anymore. They don't want to see them. They don't want anything to do with them. They want open borders, open doors, and then they'll make their own decisions.
You know, I suspect that those comments, if they're happening now, are given by a person who 30 years ago had that experience and just never has changed their mind. But we have lots of opportunities for things to be out there. Now, there's a wonderful program now through our community engagement area called Building Better Communities, where we have people out there working with various community associations and helping to build those, make them stronger. And
Jerry Wade. I'm a research fellow at the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies and the co-chair of this conference. Going back to something that was said earlier, we have community policing in the Ball State Police Department at this point in time. And as residents of what I call the student ghetto, Yvonne laughs at me on that one, but the student ghetto over here on the east side of campus, I've seen a lot of change already, even in a year, and the neighborhood is quieter, safer, cleaner. All the stuff that is going on seems to really have changed a lot. And I'm wondering if there's any partnership between the community and Ball State Police Departments here insofar as community policing. The mayor said that they're going to institute it. We used to have cop shops and that sort of stuff, but actual community policing as it's done now, is Ball State leading that in some way, or are they partnering with the city in some way? How's that going to work?
That's a good question, Jerry. I can only speak for Muncie, but we do partner with them all the time on calls. If they need us in and around the campus, we respond. If we need them outside the campus, they respond. My challenge is in trying to find ways, and going back to the cop shop days. Here's what a lot of people in Muncie don't know today. Today, the city of Muncie has 213 police officers and firefighters total. 20 years ago, we had 270. When I was talking about peace and conflict and ignorance, that's one thing. Criminals are not ignorant. They're very smart. They're smart enough to know that Ball State's got corridors. They've got quadrants that they sector their people into. We do too. It's the only way we can do it. So they know that if we've got a call over in this quadrant, that we need 2 calls, we need 2 cars or 3 cars, that we've got 2 or 3 quadrants that have nobody in. And they'll take advantage of that. And they do it, and they do it intentionally. So it's very important, and that's the reason that I was part of the General Assembly. I believe it was 4, 5, 6 years ago when we passed legislation to give university police, as long as they had the training, that they could be out into the community farther than what they used to be allowed to be. And I think it's very important. The challenge for me as a mayor is I've got to have those officers out there in the community. I've got to have them out there. The community has to feel comfortable with them. And it's a two-way street. They have to be comfortable with each other. It's very frustrating when we have gunfire and we have 26 witnesses and we can't get one person to give us a name. So we've got to get back to the community trusting us and us trusting them, that they're not going to send us into a dangerous situation when they tell us something. And then how do we continue to do that partnership? Indianapolis is a good example. You see everything that's going on there right now. The FBI statistics show that Indianapolis is 600 police officers short. And yet if you talk to the man or woman on the street, they'll tell you they don't want to pay for any more police officers. So I mean, you can't have it both ways. And that's the challenge that we have, because we have a tax cap and we have our property tax bases that we have to supply them in. But the community policing, I believe, as peaceful as our neighborhoods are, and they are pretty darn peaceful, it will even help to calm them even more. It's the same reason we put bicycle lanes in, is to calm traffic. I think community policing will calm the neighborhoods even more. And whatever we can do in partnering with Ball State, we're always willing to do that.
That's a question.
My name's Amanda, and I'm a sophomore at Ball State, and I'm involved in like the immersive learning programs and things we've kind of talked about before. I'm really involved in the community I actually work at Marion Hunt Library. And I noticed, like, even though we've talked a couple of times about how there are connections between Ball State and Muncie, I agree with what you said. Like, there are those people who say, you know, there are places that you shouldn't go, or there's students that I talk to that say, you know, after a certain point, they've never been, like, to the south side, or even to where, you know, I work. So is there, like, I'd say this would be to President King, is there a, you know, expansion of immersive learning projects that you think could kind of expand into that area, or beyond, you know, just the ways you talked, kind of connecting more with that part of the community?
Well, without knowing the specifics, I would say there's an awful lot going out there. In fact, I don't know everything's going on out there now. There's literally hundreds of students all the time that are out there doing various things, and we probably would find better ways to talk about those. One thing that we're planning in the very near future is developing, it goes both ways. I mean, the mayor alluded to this earlier. There are people in the community who have never been on our campus, and they have attitudes about the campus that I find remarkable in some ways. That they wouldn't be welcome, that it's too expensive to go to the museum, which is free. So one thing we're planning to do in the very near future, I think starting this fall, is really pushing for a day. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to call it, a day where we're getting out there and asking people to come to campus. We'll have things set up like the athletic department will have a whole set up there so they can talk about it. Come to the games, come to the softball games, the soccer games, football games, all these wonderful activities where we have relatively few people from the community. But also the cultural things on campus, such as the museum, the orchid greenhouse. How many have been to the orchid greenhouse? Well, quite a few people. I mean, it's in the middle of winter when it's really cold, going to the orchid greenhouse. It's a wonderful experience. The planetarium, or the arts, the art glass center, or any of the facilities on campus. We welcome people to come to campus. So we want to do both ways. We want to get our students out there, and we want to get the community onto our campus. And so let's just look for more ways to do that. I know we're not perfect. We'll certainly try to do more.
You make parking easy for parking.
Parking's always a problem. You know, just a quick anecdote about parking. I was at a conference one time a number of years ago, and I was talking with some corporate executives, and these were big Silicon Valley companies talking about how they had to give away cars to get people to come to work for them. And I laughed. I said, I work at a university. We don't even give away parking places. Which is true. But so we can do things like greater access to our shuttle buses, and you have parking at the perimeter anyway. There's some safety issues about getting up parking too close to campus. But in off hours, it's a lot more open than it is during the workday. Parking is always an issue.
And just to follow up a little bit on what you're saying with the immersive learning programs and that, we know that Ball State students and faculty literally donate thousands of hours a year into programs. And it's so appreciative, and it's so important. Some of the other things that we've tried to do for improving connectivity that I think is important is the bicycle lanes and ways that Ball State students and faculty get comfortable getting off the campus, getting on their bicycle and coming through the village on Martin and going down to White River Boulevard and over onto the White River Greenway and then onto the Greenway, what we're getting ready to do on Neely Avenue this summer. And that will become a great connector coming out of McKinley and Neely over towards Minnetrista and over to the Greenway that way. Ways to get students off campus. It's amazing to me when I talk to students how many of them don't even realize that we got a beautiful reservoir not 20 minutes from the heart of this campus, that you can do so many things. We have mountain bike trails and sailboats and kayaking and swimming, best fishing in East Central Indiana. All of those things that if we could get that into programs that the Ball State students and faculty can see, that they get much more comfortable getting out of their comfort zone and seeing some of these cool amenities. Jason Denetti back there every year puts on a week-long program out at Prairie Creek for young men and women to come out and learn nature and see that spatial, how spatial that is. I think that helps Ball State get much more comfortable with Muncie. And it amazes me when we talk to students, that Judd Fisher and I did this last year, and was talking to a group of students. They didn't realize we had a greenway. They didn't realize we had Prairie Creek. You know, and it just kind of floored us.
This made me think of something I hadn't thought of before. Transportation probably is a big issue for students. Many of them don't have cars. And give a couple of heads nods. Yes. That may be something that we could work on in a ways we think. Transportation.
Well, and we are talking, Ball State and the city of Muncie is talking on a potential bike share program. You know, we think that that's something that would be pretty cool and pretty appreciated, so.
Just to add to that, the student have a package that has all this information that freshmen are given about the Prairie Creeks and what's in Muncie.
You know, the students are given a lot of information, and just imagine as a young person coming in as a freshman getting this whole bunch of information. It's almost an overload, so they don't look at it particularly well. So we try to do that a couple times, but we have to figure out ways to make that better. There's a lot. They try to connect them with the community. That first week, they actually take them out to various places, but it's a challenge.
Cornelius Dawson, from past president of Whitey Neighborhood Association. We appreciate your comments about schools within the context of community and those people working on the future teachers and involving them within the community. The key thing that really makes this work, I believe, is establishing and building relationships. It's that relationship that the community as mentors have with those students in that class, the relationship the students have to develop within those students that they work with in the community after they finish the classroom. These are just priceless, and it has a tendency to really move and accelerate the learning process and empower those students to really be what they really can be. We're working with several entities in our community as a Whitey Community Council. We talk about community policing. We have established one of our goals is safety, and we have the Ball State Police Chief and their assistant. We have the sheriff. We have the police chief, Muncie, and a couple of his key men are on that committee. We have Ball State, Dr. Jerome McKean, who retired, he's on that committee. We have several people on there, and we have the prosecutor's office represented on that committee, and so we're really excited about trying to do things not for Whitey. We're thinking about the greater community, how we can help the whole community. So we're working with Melinda Macinio and a couple of her classes, I think, and we're developing forums, and that's one of the things that's really important and was brought out in our meetings and in that meetings where we have our safety committee, is how those police and everyone can establish a relationship with that community. And one of the programs we have is Walking with a Purpose, in which we have the kids and people walking, picking up trash, maybe passing out flyers, and just exercising. So it's a health aspect to that, and it's also maintaining and keeping trash picked up. But we were saying, how nice would that be to have a police walk along with those kids and the police, so that people can see that, hey, looky there's a policeman, and you find out that this guy, maybe I know him, you know? And so that's how we build relationships with. We're really struggling with a lot of issues in our community. One of the main things that we're dealing with is the food insecurities. We're really suffering from the food insecurities of being a desert without really having the food sources nearby, where residents without transportation and all of that. try to get at Dollar General because they don't have anything close by, and it gets really dangerous. But we want to try to see how we can work together to build real community. And we thank you for all your involvement with Ball State. The city has been wonderful with Wiley and things we've been doing. And this is really a nice conference. We really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rodriguez. I fully understand we've got a food desert on the east side of Martin Luther King Boulevard, and we've got to do something about it. And if I could ever get the environmental issues resolved with the old Best Western, I think that's the best place to start. I honestly do. I really think the article regarding the Kmart building was a disservice to the Whiteman community last week. Anybody that understands the impact of a flood zone has to know that there isn't any way in the world that we're going to be able to put anything in that building where it's located. And for anybody to think that FEMA is going to grandfather that is living in fairy tale land. But it's, you're right, that is an issue. But the bigger issue, once we deal with that, is having public safety integrated into these neighborhoods to where they're comfortable with it. And, you know, that's one of the reasons we created the safe stations at our fire stations for young children to be comfortable coming to those fire stations if they're feeling challenged or threatened in any way. But it's, yeah. We've got plenty of time. I have something else I want to say very important at the end that I'll leave it for them, because I think it's the biggest challenge to resolving conflict and promoting peace. And that's how we educate each other to get there.
Webster, there's a question there.
Go ahead. Okay, yeah. I'll do this one. Well, my name is Quentin Thompson. I'm a Peace and Conflict Studies minor here, but I'm also on the debate team. And for those who don't know about the debate team, every semester we get a resolution. Yeah, someone's cheering in the back. We get a resolution that's generally, it has some kind of term, and we're either pro or con, not to brag or anything, but the debate team went to California and we won nationals. Good job, debate team. And this semester's resolution was the United States should significantly increase the minimum wage. And the way we won is that we researched the minimum wage very significantly. And all credible research states that increasing the minimum wage has negligible harms for job loss, and in fact stimulates the economy and creates jobs. So with that being said, now the current minimum wage does not meet the cost of living for this area. So someone on the minimum wage makes it very difficult for them to live here. And from a student's perspective, we are only allowed 20 hours to work maximum a week, which barely or does not pay the bills. So, so much so that student government has created a nonprofit food bank for students. Students may work 2 part-time jobs, and that still is not sufficient, and they may be drowning. Now, both of you have opportunities to set higher minimum wage. It may be difficult, but the benefits are insurmountable. So how do you plan to address the minimum wage for both of your entities?
I can answer first. I dealt with that while I was in the General Assembly and I got nowhere. What we have done as a city is we did raise the minimum wage for our city employees and sanitary district employees to $10.10 an hour. It's still not nearly enough. The easiest way for me to answer it is the challenge I have is getting much higher than that is finding the resources to do it and continue to provide the services that I need to provide. My argument would be Washington and Indianapolis have got to do something. I just saw a study this morning talking about over the last 20 years how middle class income has only went up about 2%. The income, but their livable income has went down 35%. While the top in our country, their income has went up 95%. So it's a culture issue, and it's a social issue, and it's the only way that you can make that change is you have to make it. I'll just go back to what Dr. King said. You make it at the voting booth. You make it at the voting booth. You may not like to hear that, but if you don't get it done at the voting booth, you'll never get it done. And it should be done at the national level. I'd pay $15 an hour in a heartbeat if everybody could pay $15 an hour. It doesn't bother me a bit to pay more money for something that's made in the USA. It doesn't bother me a bit. I do try to shop as best I can to do that. But the only way that you're really going to address that is in the voting booth. That's why California's doing something with it. They got the votes to get it done. That's why New York is doing something with it. They got the votes to get it done. You look at the makeup of our General Assembly, they'd probably lower the minimum wage. I'm just being honest with you, they probably would. They truly probably would.
When the mayor referred to Dr. King, he was referring to a far more notable Dr. but definitely right. You know, you mentioned the 20-hour limit. That's for work-study students. And that is a federal program that gives us money from somewhere else. So, you know, if we let students, we can't, it's just regulated that way. So we're happy to take that money and give it on to students, but that's a rule there. And it is a resource issue, it really is. I mean, our major source of operational funds is from student tuition. So if we were to raise student, we're actually talking about raising our minimum wage, but if we were to raise it, it has to come from somewhere. You know, you mentioned the food bank, and that's something you may not know about as an audience here in general, but our student voluntary services organization does some remarkable things, not only in this community, but across the country. One of the things they've done recently is create a food bank on campus for students who are distressed in that way. They need food, and that's a wonderful activity. I'm so pleased to see our students do that. I'm also suggested that some other universities do is students develop philanthropic programs for students, helping students on their campus. I think we can do more of that. It doesn't alleviate the minimum wage issue and those kinds of things, but that's something that we should be thinking about as well as part of the solution to this larger problem.
You know, if you go back in time, ladies and gentlemen, some of my greatest heroes were the Kennedys and Dr. Martin Luther King. And one of the most profound statements that Dr. King, in my opinion, ever made, and he made this at an AFL-CIO convention, that you cannot have social justice without economic justice. And you cannot have economic justice without social justice. Now think about that. That was said 60 years ago. And we're still talking about both of those today. And you listen on the national level, things that are going on. You're talking about peace and conflict. They're trying to create conflict to take those rights away. To take them away from women, to take them away from people of color, and people of certain religions and nationalities. And that's critical for our society as the United States of America, in my opinion. And I will go to my grave saying that social justice and economic justice go hand in hand. And we as a society, and people like you in this room, have to figure out how we help everybody get there. Then we'll be successful.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Seid, and I work at the Free David Owsley Museum of Art, so thank you very much for mentioning that. I've been thinking about the ways that the campus and the community can connect more closely. We've been talking and listening this evening, and I just want to ask the question, because at Ball State possible to incentivize faculty and staff at Ball State to do more volunteering in the community? I know many people do already, but I also know lots of people don't. On the city side, I wondered if there's a way somehow to incentivize participation in the campus activities as well. Would this be a way of possibly bridging the divide?
I'll tell you, that's a great idea. I would work with the university in a heartbeat. We just put together, in my opinion, the finest health and wellness program for public employees in the state of Indiana last year. And we incentivize them up to $750 a year into their HSA by them participating. And it's a great program. Our challenge is, and we're working with IU Health, and we're trying to figure out more ways to be more proactive in it. Because what we have found, the more energized our employees get, the more our health costs come down. And it's just simple math. 6 months after our health and wellness program went in place, man, we get an estimate that we're going to save $300,000 this year just in maintenance drugs. Just in maintenance drugs. Not another health care, but just in maintenance drugs alone. By people lowering their cholesterol levels, lowering their blood sugar levels, lowering their blood pressure levels. I'll never get my blood pressure lowered. I do it because Ball State's got the facility. My biggest challenge is right now what we're looking at, trying to figure out how can I get all my employees one place where they can get in, that they can have the wellness experts to work with them, that they can participate because they want to. They're wanting healthier foods. Well, as mayor, I've got to get it to them. And the more money we can save in health insurance, the more money I can give them in livable income. But and I look at Ball State, and I've been in their wellness center, and it's fantastic. I don't know if we can afford to be a partner with them in it or not, but if they wanted to really put something together out of the goodness of their heart and champion the state-of-the-art program, that maybe we could end up being recognized throughout the state. My goal is within 2 years that the city of Muncie is recognized as having the finest health and wellness and health plan for public employees in the state of Indiana. And if we can, I think that's pretty special.
It's an interesting idea, and I think we ought to explore it. One thing I would suggest that we are an entrepreneurial university. We have real strong entrepreneurship programs. We're really taking that and expanding it into all areas of the university, not just for business students and not just for business, but entrepreneurs learn how to solve problems and be innovative in unique ways. And it just occurred to me that some of these issues that we're bringing up here are really primed for going through these systematic ways that we have developed and used for solving problems. So I would suggest if we could come up with a list of half a dozen things, it would be a wonderful prototype for us to take that, use our people who are trained in these methods for arriving at problem definition and then creative problem solving, come up with interesting ideas. I don't know what the solutions will be ahead of time. It's really difficult in a group this size to brainstorm and create a solution on the fly, but I think there could be something that could incentivize more of our faculty members and students to get out. I just don't know what that is right now. But I think that's an interesting idea, concept that we should pursue.
I think one of the things that has occurred to me as we've been chatting is that a key issue our community faces has to do with poverty, and that poverty seems to be linking to a lot of the issues that we're talking about. It has something to do with crime, it has something to do with nutritional standards, it has something to do with health standards, and maybe that's the place to focus our initial attention.
Well, you're absolutely right. And not just Muncie, but most older cities all over the country. And it goes back to a little bit of what the gentleman said of raising that minimum wage. We have many people working, they're still being subsidized. That's the reason I'm very picky on where I shop. I'm just not interested in shopping at some places that's, their employees have to apply for subsidies, and it costs us $1 million a year here in the state of Indiana to do that for one of them. But that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is, man, as a city, is I know I've got jobs out there. I just met the day before yesterday with the Muncie Area Career Center on how they're expanding training programs with the manufacturers and great programs. But Yvonne can tell you, we've had a RAMP program, a Regional Advanced Manufacturing Program in the city of Muncie for 4 years now. And it's free. And we struggle to get enough people to have a class. And the argument is, from many of the employers, is they can't pass a drug test. Well, my argument is, you're picking the wrong people. There's a lot of people out there that can pass a drug test. Don't tell me that's the reason. If it's all about hiring people at the cheapest wage that you can hire them, then that could possibly be an issue. But we know we've got a drug issue. Every community's dealing with it. I don't care if you live in Carmel, Fishers, Muncie, I don't care what community you're living in. You pick and choose it. They've all got a drug issue. It's what we decide we're going to do to deal with it and how we get there. But there isn't any doubt that poverty is what drove and created the food deserts out there east of Martin Luther King Boulevard. That's exactly why I believe the stores pulled out of there. It's my job, my responsibility to convince one to come back there, that there's a work to do that. Poverty will be a challenge until Washington wants to say it's not going to be a challenge anymore. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to put more money into our communities, in infrastructure, to give mayors the opportunity to hire more people at good income, that they can make a living and get to training at the same time. As then we also have to have good job training programs. But there's a lot of jobs out there. I could bring you in 24 high-wage employers right now in the city of Muncie in Delaware County that will tell you they're struggling to find people. And that's a challenge for me as mayor and how we work with them. And I think that's how we rise people out of poverty. And I think, again, it goes back to educating and making people aware of what's available to them.
Other questions, comments? Yes.
I just thought, since nobody else is talking, so I thought I would go for it. I'm a family physician. I just want to maybe give a different perspective from our side. If there's no justice in a holistic way, I think peace and conflict situation will be difficult to achieve. But I appreciate it. I think it's wonderful to discuss, wonderful to talk about it in whatever way we can do to improve. I'm originally from Afghanistan. For example, the Taliban, they're recruiting these farmers explode themselves. It's not, already they're talking about, when the people die in the media, that because there will be promised, 70 women here, and yeah, maybe that's something there. But in majority, these are people illiterate, and people are hopeless. They don't have hope, illiterate. So they can give them $10, okay, we can give it to the family and you will go to heaven, but also, so the bottom line is, although in the media, and maybe there are some fundamental, there's no, you cannot deny that, like 9/11 things happen, but some of those situations, the basic problem is again education and poverty and injustice and the have and the have not. That's one thing. Secondly, I was very surprised, I'm sure maybe some of you have heard it, the recent attack that happened in Belgium, in Brussels. I heard it on NPR, but I got the end of it. Those people who committed that crime, they have been criminals, they have been in jail. There have been some of them being in jail and doing alcohol and things like that, which is completely against Islam. Completely against Islam. But, then the media portrayed, and then when I heard it actually, those people who come immigrant from Africa and other places, they're in the ghettos. And this, like in France, there's a third person, a Muslim, who mostly come from Africa, from Algeria and things like that. They're living ghettos. They don't have jobs. They don't have, anything hope. So they resort. So they were saying that. I was surprised. So all of these things was not, but the media, I think, will portray it as like because only fundamental. Of course, there may be some part of it, part of it there, but also just to bring that a perspective from outside, when you don't have a hope, when you don't have you don't see a vision somewhere, psychological and hopeless, that makes it, very difficult. You lose your hope, then you resort to things that doesn't make sense and, short-term solution. And sometimes even as some of my physician colleagues, we, say, okay, this is a freedom, and this is a democracy in this country, and that's why I'm here, because of the freedom, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate the conference. But on the sense you have, sometimes I ask them, how do you compare my children and my wife, like Bibi, who is Mother Teresa, at home? No, honestly, at home, and I'm a physician to provide for the children who can go to school, who can go to with a family on the southeast side or any other side. Compared to the father is not existent, or the mother may be working, or maybe different men into the home, a different woman to the home, and things like that. There's no hope. How you can compare this and this is equal opportunity? Nonsense. What do you mean equal opportunity? There's no equal opportunity. How do you compare my children and somebody else's children with those children who are living in that? Go ahead and live in that situation. One time, to be honest, Amir Shabazz, he was living at that time. I went to the southeast side, 5 years ago or something, somebody died, I wanted to go to funeral. And I got lost on the southeast side. I got lost, it was in the evening, and I couldn't find, so I parked my car parallel, and, to stop someone. And I was scared too, then I asked somebody to see where this funeral place is. They showed me to be. Honest to God, I came home, I cried, because I've never been to that side, to see that situation, that there's no infrastructure, there's no, gas station, there's no small shop, there's no barber shop, there's nothing. And then we can say that we have the equal opportunity, we have the freedom, we have the, I think we have to be realistic. But again, I appreciate all the people who are coming, I appreciate the leadership of this community to come and talk. That's wonderful about in this society that we can sit down and talk about it and everybody share their feelings. Thank you.
Thank you. The truth of the matter is, in our society today, people understand people that don't have any hope, they can control it. If they don't have a disposable income, they can be controlled. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the truth. If you have a disposable income, to make that decision that you can go over here or you can go over there and you can afford to do it, all of your choices expand. All of your opportunities expand. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you how deep this goes and why it's part of our problem in how we have a successful society. You remember when they built the Honda plant in over in Greensburg? I was in the General Assembly. You remember how much money the state of Indiana gave them to locate there? And all the highways that they built for them and everything that they did? How many of you in this room realize that they only hired in 17 counties? And you know why they did that? If you looked at those 17 counties, they had a 1% minority population. They had a 3% organized labor population. Muncie or Delaware County could not apply to go to work at that Greensburg plant. And their argument to me was, as a legislator, those people couldn't commute back and forth. It'd be too difficult for them. And I said, now wait a minute. You're telling me if one of my constituents can fill out an application and get a job and go to work there, and they have to show up at work at 7 o'clock in the morning, just like everybody else, and they have to play by the same rules if they're late, well, we don't want to mess with that. And you know what the state told me? We're happy to have it. Get over it. Well, again, what I'm trying to say is, that's when they institutionalize my thought, and they segregate out where these jobs go and how they go, it's another way to control people. And again, it goes right back and again to Dr. King and what he said. You cannot have social justice without economic justice. And if they can control your paycheck, they control you. You may not want them to, but they're going to control you. It goes back to what Cornelia said about watching people have. Why would an 85-year-old lady have to walk across McGallion to go to the Guy Starr grocery store? That's lived in that area all her life, hasn't bothered a soul, maybe worked 35 years and is now retired. And yet, she's lost her grocery store through nothing that she did other than they've driven wages down to such a low extreme that it's hard to encourage a business to want to locate there because they want to make it 15 or 18%. And if they can't, then they're not going to do it. And that's how they hold communities like Muncie hostage. If you want us to come there, you got to pay us to come. You got to finance us to come. You got to give us the building. You got to give us this, and you got to give us that. And if we don't, then we can't be successful. And I think that's why you see young men and women all over this country right now building momentum in movements at the national level because they want change. They want change, and they're expecting their elected leaders to lead that change. And if they don't want to do it at the university level, or at the state level, or at the national level, or at the local level, they're going to do something about it. And they should, as well as you should. Sister Bibi, you
I think I'm
what a great
the opposite of my husband.
It's America, go ahead.
Great conflict resolution.
That's what we are here for.
This is very nice to hear that. I think I appreciate everybody being here and addressing this. I think the Peace and Conflict Studies are doing a great job, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of it. I think the reason I'm going to go against him, what we have left as a society is not only just here in Muncie, all over the nation. I mean, even other countries, international, everywhere. That we have a creator, then we have certain morale that we have to follow. Then we have family, that's respected family, that we have stuff like, what is that, food pyramids or something? The big one is a creator, and then the second biggest one is your parents who carry you on your tummy for 9 months and then give you birth and raise you the way you're supposed to be raised. And then all these, I can just tell you, I'm not going to talk too long, but the pyramid is the example. I think we have too much freedom, too much choices. That's why we have Youth Opportunity Center. If the parents, after the creator, they strongly believe in their creator, whatever their God may be, there may be a different God for them, but somebody is above us. And then the parents, if they follow the parents' stuff and they respectfully listen, we won't have to to send them to Youth Opportunity Center. These kids will be into structure. There is a foundation missing. We have a strong foundation built up, then they could be helping society, contributing citizens of our society to help others in need. Because the limit, the poverty level, the single parenting, sometimes I feel like we should announce that we have a limited children. If you brought a child to this life, you have responsibility. How to feed your child, how to take care of them, how to educate them. Think before you act. That's what I'm saying. There's too much freedom. Teenage pregnancy, they have no responsibility. Government is paying for it. Some of these things I totally disagree with. It's a blessing to have the opportunity to have the government who will pay for you in emergency situation, who will be there for you, the system, the city. But what is your responsibility? To be created, how you've been brought up, your parents. Then they leave, they have so many choices because they don't like this man. I don't like my husband, but I have to live with him. Then they choose somebody else.
Don't lie, Dee, don't lie.
Just too many choices and there's too much freedom. I think we are going too far from our basis of human
Don't you think some of that though comes back to what your husband was saying? Hope. These young people have to see some hope. That there is a light at the end of the tunnel for you. I knew, Sister Bibi, when I was growing up, and once I got out of Central, I knew I could go anywhere I wanted to and get a job. I could walk down to Border Gear and get a job. I could walk over to Chevrolet and get a job, or I could walk over to Delco and get a job. They were there, so we had that hope. When men and women, I think, don't have that hope, is drives them to violence, drives them to despair, drives them to drugs, drives them to alcohol, to suicide, and to violence. And I believe that disposable income for people gives them an opportunity to make a difference. Again, I'll go back to my dad. I think he was one of the smartest men that I ever had the opportunity to be around. But he said that you're going to see the day come, Dennis, when guys like me are making enough money that we can go to the lakes, or we can buy a boat, or we can do some things, that things are going to start falling apart. They're not going to like it. And things are going to change. And something changed. Something changed. And it's how do we get back there? I think we've got enough wealth in this world, in this country, to share it. And I look at the wealth around us, and then I see the struggle that Muncie Community Schools is going through. And schools are building pantries for kids to be able to have food to take home on the weekends. And then all the wealth that we have, I see all the wealth that they're sending to other countries. And if they were sending me $10 million a year for 5 years, I could have every street in Muncie paved. I could have sidewalks to every school in the city. I could have playground equipment in our parks, our schools. Things could be so much different. And here's the sad part about it, Sister Bibi. $50 million to Washington is chump change. I'm serious. It's chump change. It's just like when I tried to get the General Assembly to put up $5 million to put together a gun giveaway program of people to turn guns in and how much money would get. And they said that it would be a waste of money. $5 million to the state of Indiana was chump change. And they did. There was no interest in it. And it's. I understand what drives people to violence. And I know people have heard me say this before. I don't know which comes first, the mental illness or the hatred. something is driving a lot of people to that. And I think it's up to us as a society and how we address our elected officials on how we will deal with it.
We have time for one more question. Yes. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Brian Mata. I'm sitting here in Ball State. Please excuse my attire. But my question is more directed to the mayor. I've worked as an interpreter for about a year now, and I receive many immigrants coming in and always saying that they would like to have an opportunity to learn English. They feel like they receive hateful remarks and hateful glares because they don't have a way to immerse with the community with that language barrier. And many times that's also a detriment to their children who can't properly learn because they don't understand the material if all they speak at their home is Spanish and they go to change whenever they're at school. So my question would be, what kind of programs can be implemented so that people who are immigrants can learn English and be able to be more part of the community as well?
That's a great question and comment. I'll be honest with you, that's the first time I've heard that. So I guess I don't want to plead ignorance, but I think we can figure that out with somebody like you and others, and maybe we work with Ball State and we put together an immersive learning program that we open up doors to allow immigrants to come in and have an opportunity to get that type of education. I don't think it would be that difficult. I've never heard that issue before. Thank you for bringing it to me.
I really am. I like that concept. When I first came here about 10 years ago, one of the immersive learning projects going on at that time was Tell them the Doubles that were developed by Professor Chinso Pak, who was a professor of Spanish, by the way, in our modern language department. And these were videos like soap opera videos, but they were educational, helping immigrant families or families who could not speak English but speak Spanish, help them navigate things like how to get your license for your car, how to do these various things. So there have been some attempts on our side to do those, but of course those are just short class-related things. But if we wanted to develop a program that would be more, have more continuity over time, that is something that we could sort of look at and partner with. I just want to make one comment, because sitting here next to the mayor has been a remarkable experience for me to feel his passion for all these topics. And it makes me think that my passion is actually in different areas. I'm in education, and that's what I've done. That's what I've chosen as my career path. And so my passion is trying to solve these same problems, but from an educator's point of view. What can we, because I have seen what happens at the higher education level. College students who come in at a disadvantaged way and suddenly change. The transformation can be just remarkable. And I know some of the faculty members in the audience have seen this as well. That's what inspires me. The mayor is an extraordinarily skilled politician and worked for this state and this community for his whole life. And that's what his skills. So we all have our own skills. We have medicine, we have teachers, we have people who work in the community. So I think these are multifaceted problems with plenty of opportunities for all of us to contribute in ways that would be meaningful for us. It's been a remarkable experience for me sitting here. So.
And back to your comment too, sir. You know, just 2 Saturdays ago, Muncie with Ball State hosted the first ever, and I can't even say it, Mexican prom up in Cornerstone, and it was amazing. My wife and I was up there for a little over 4 hours, and we got to watch the young girls go through going from a child into a woman through the prom process and it was just amazing to see it. So, you know, if we want to do this, we can figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
I just want to share that there is a program going on with English as a second language in the schools through Ball State, and Dr. Lynn Stallings is working with students, Ball State students, to teach young children English to help them with their studies, and their next stage is to provide classes for parents in schools, and I believe they started at Muncie Central. I'm not sure what their plans are afterwards, but Dr. Lynn Stallings would be a good person to talk to.
King and Mayor Tyler for being so frank and open.
I'd really like to just thank everybody for allowing me to come out here and spend the evening and talk. And I'd just like to leave with this, and I know Dr. Barami and his wife and others have heard me say this before, and that we're talking about peace, and we're talking about conflict, and we're talking about ignorance, and we're talking about education, ladies and gentlemen. And here's one thing that I know, and I'll say it until somebody can prove me different. I've never known a child to be born racist or full of hate. Somebody teaches them and educates them to hate their fellow citizens, whether it's their color, whether it's their religion, or whatever those beliefs are. And until we change that, there's always going to be conflict. And it's up to us as a society to say no more. That we have to have social justice, we have to have economic justice, and it's all of us working together to get that done. Because I've seen children that have walked up to me and said, "What's an end world and why?" Now, where'd you hear that? My dad taught it to me. Well, what's the peaceful benefit of teaching a child that word? Any different than a woman, a young child, hearing different things about her. So, I just leave you with that. If we really want peace in our society today, we have to get it started way down here and have them in before they even head to school. And that's the only way we're going to be successful. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for your evocative and timely kind of questions. I think we covered a lot of different territory. One of the things that impressed me about your questions was the fact that many of you demonstrated that you have a very rich understanding about what causes conflict and what is peace. I think oftentimes when people think about peace, they think about the direct violence that occurs between individuals, physical violence or emotional violence. But you all told us tonight, you all talked to us about structural violence, systemic violence, economic violence, violence around food. And I think that says a lot to me about the fact that as a group of individuals, you have a good understanding of the factors that contribute to this dilemma that we do face. The other thing that was striking to me was that both the mayor and the president pointed out a number of examples of how the two institutions, if you will, work together and have worked together. And I think what we heard here tonight from you and from them, places where there's some common ground, where they can continue to expand. And I think that from my own observation, I think the immersive learning program that Ball State has been a remarkable way that the institution has interacted with the community, in a very successful way that we've interacted with the community. And I think ideas came out of this conversation about potentially new immersive learning projects that could be put forward, and that I know President King is interested in, because he was very involved in spearheading those programs to start with. So, I'd love to come back in a year and say, we're dealing with the food desert. That a group of students on campus, along with the community, came up with a project to deal with this issue. I don't think this is a this kind of dialogue and get this kind of feedback. So, again, I think it's a testimony to their commitment to each other and to all of us that